All right, looks like we're live. Hello, everybody. Well, let's just jump right into it. So this year, the etudes are just like every other year. Swing etude, there's a swing ballad, and then the third one's a samba. Looks like we got 7 of you in here anyway. Just to let you know, if I don't like your username, you're going to be insta-banned. It already happened once. If you want to come back on as another username, feel free. Well, I don't think you're banned from the chat, but I don't think it kicks you from the live stream. So anyway, is everybody else's name there? Extreme Xylophone. That's great. Hi, Aiden. Aiden, you're supposed to be at work. Or at least I thought you were. All right, so let's take a look. So by now, everybody should have a copy of the etudes. They're $5 online. It's not that much. I'm not going to have the etudes listed out here at all. So have them in front of you. We'll just go over, and if you have questions, feel free to let me know. All right. So let's look at the beginning. It's a fast swing, 176 beats per minute. I'm going to throw the metronome on. Hopefully you guys can hear it. All right. Here's the metronome, 176. First thing I like to do is just go through it, get some of the rhythms down, and then add the notes later. So here at the top is a pickup note. Watch the key signatures. You got 2 flats. We're in B flat major. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dot dot do dot. Da do ba da ya da ba do da dit dit da. Watch the accents. Is there anything you should write in there? The thing most people are going to screw up on is their entrance in measure 2. Dot dot do dot. Ba da ba dee ba da ba da ba do da dit dit da. Or dit ba, if you think of it that way. Hello, Adrian. Good to see you. Who else is on here? I think I got everybody. Anyone get the link to the Trumpet Etudes? Go buy them. They're only $5. All right, so the very beginning. 1, 2, 3. Watch your accents. For that little turn in measure 2. Play the B, go up a half step to the C, back down to a B, and then just continue down the A flat and play it in time. Going into the second line. Da ba do da do da da ba dee ba do boo dot. Watch your accents, like we said. Staccatos are really, really important. Make sure your staccato notes are real short. Depending on what you guys want, and depending on how long we go, we could dive into this a little bit more thoroughly. This is kind of a first look for me, too. I looked at it earlier this afternoon with one of my lesson students who might be on here, but let's look at that part. See how that rhythm changes in line 3? In line 3, we have those dotted quarter notes, 8th note tied to a quarter note, 8th note tied to a quarter note, dotted quarter notes. That rhythm, the duration of all those are the same. So when you're going through there, everything's like equidistant from each other. Da, 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 da. And so that should make it a little bit easier to keep track of the time as you're going through there. Da, 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 do, ba, da, ba, da. Now, on top of that, they throw these little loop things over it. What do you call those? It's like a dip or a bend in the note. What I would do, and I might change my mind. Again, this is just looking at it at first glance. Da, da, da. You don't want that dip to slow you down at all. You know? So what you can practice is practice your lip bends. What's an A? Does that make sense? So practice your note bends, or lip bends, whatever you want to call them. Da-ba-da-ba-doo, da-dum-bum. But since there's a couple things going on there, rhythmically, pay attention to that. What else is going on? There's a crescendo. It kind of does a similar thing in the third measure of line 4. Da, da, da. Now, a lot of people are going to mess up that rhythm the whole line through. But take a look at the last measure in that third line. I want you to make sure that you're holding it long enough. So in that third measure, I would write down like some down arrows so that you see exactly where your foot should tap. Da. In line 3, measure 3. Da, da. On 4, your foot comes down. So there's one down arrow. And then on the downbeat of the next measure, your foot's going to come down. Your foot's going to come down one more time before you play the upbeat of 2 in that last measure. So line 3, measure 3, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, da, 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 bed up. And so you hold it that long. You're going to tap your foot 2 times when you're playing the G. And then again, don't let that dip in the note slow you down. That makes sense how that goes? So you just play it like that. Going into line 4, we're crescendoing, and that would make sense. You want to crescendo as you're ascending the line. It gets really soft as the decrescendo as you go down the line. Is there anything? Watch the staccato note. Do dit da. You're going to play both those notes short in line 4, measure 1. Watch your 16th notes at the end of that line. Whole thing, crescendo that from piano on forward. Welcome to the chat. Remember to guard your privacy. Like I said, if you have any questions, just leave them in the chat. Looking into the next line. Oh, this is cool. So in the next line, this is line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you go to measure 3 in line 5. Those 8-note rhythms have accents kind of strategically put. You guys have heard that rhythm before. It's going to sound like this. They got a D sharp. So watch those accents. That's going to make that entire phrase. Angel Valesco. I'm trying to purchase the Jazz Etudes, but it doesn't give me the trumpet option. That's why I'm asking. What'd you ask? Oh, for the link? Oh, I got you. So I put a link in the description on this video, and you have to scroll to the right. Isn't that awful? So I put a link in the description of this video, and I posted it. Where else did I post it? Oh, if you're looking on a phone, yeah, that's kind of annoying. But just in case anybody else needs the link, you probably want to use a desktop. But this is where you can find them. It's $5. That's just because, I mean, for me to, there's not really a way for me to share it on here. I feel like my grandma in technology. Yeah, if you're like a teenager and you have trouble downloading any of these etudes, there could be something wrong. Let's see. I had to scroll down on mobile to see individual trumpet packet. Well, that's fair. Thank you, mental health mommy. That's adorable. All right, let's see. Where'd we end up? Oh, yeah. So this is that fifth line. So those little note bends are all over the place in here. When you finally get to the higher portion, like the last two lines, practice it down an octave so you can hear what they sound like. You know, it's not like these lines are super consonant sounding. And if you're not used to, listening to jazz or playing jazz all the time, this stuff might sound kind of weird to you. If that's the case, again, take it down an octave, really know what it sounds like. I would play it down an octave 10, 20, 30 times until you can really hear it, until you can sing it, ideally. You know, just do that over and over and over. And just do the whole thing down. And then when you can hear it, take it back up. The trill, the lip trill, or the shake, I'd probably do a shake personally, depending on how you want to do that stylistically. Like a hand shake versus, well, you can do it either way and kind of play around with your preference. There's some great exercises in the Arbin book, which you can get the Arbin book online pretty easily, where you work on lip trills. Just take the same fingering. Just work your way up. Until you get to that B flat range. And you get a nice shake or a lip trill on that. I don't know if I would recommend doing anything a whole lot wider. Because a fast swing, I mean, that's kind of a combination of doing that lip trill and a shake. Now, some people would rather do like a hand shake, and you can practice that too, but it's a different. And then when you get to the top, it's just kind of a little bit different sound. It can be more of an aggressive move that you do on there. All measure 25 has an asterisk that denotes all state cut. Does that mean we only need to play to measure 25? In your region, okay, so for all state, the way this typically goes, if I remember correctly, is your region has a round of auditions. So there's your region audition for jazz. And every region does it, I guess, has the option of doing it differently. The region you're probably in, because I think I know who you are, the region you're probably in, you're probably going to do the whole thing for your region cut. I think this region does the entire song from top to bottom. So I think this is an optional cut for regions who maybe they're smaller regions and there's people in there that can't handle the whole thing. You know, they would stop there and then make a band out of it. But for your region, you're responsible for all of it. And then those who make region and place high enough, you're going to do a recording that you'll submit, and that'll also be the whole thing. But you know, I'm pretty sure you're going to be doing the whole thing. Or at least typically, I think that's how it goes. But that's a good question. So there's shakes. That's how I practice some higher stuff. What else is there? At the very end, when you're playing the D natural and you got that little thing again. For lower scalular things, like in measure 2 of line 1, you got that little. when you're up high, you're probably not going to change fingering so much. You know, in the very last measure, you're playing a D to an F to a B flat, so it's all first valve. A lot of that's just going to take flexibility. And then up. You're going to get that sort of... Oh, I didn't hit the right note there, but it's going to be more of a kind of an upward slur. So make sure you're working on your slurring. Or whatever your slur exercises are. Actually, I have a lip flexibility book that I've worked on before, but most flexibility studies are going to be similar. You're just playing harmonics, the same valve, up and down. Let me look at this one. I can just go to any page. It's using that flexibility to go up a harmonic or two to get that glissy sort of sound. You just do it very quickly up and down. So there's Etude 1. If you have any questions about Etude 1, let me know. Let's look at Etude 2. Now, when I was looking at this, I got a little, I don't want to say confused. So it says swing ballad at 65. So let's grab 65 so you can kind of hear what we're doing. So 65 beats per minute. It's going to sound like this. So swing ballad, 65 beats per minute. That's the quarter note. 16ths are straight except in double time section. Let's look down. The double time section, I'll take a pencil and just kind of bracket that so you see it. That's going to be in line 3, measure 2. That's your double time section, and that ends on the second last line at the end of the second measure. Okay? So double time swing, if you're not familiar with it, you're basically playing like bebop at that point. Okay. Now the key signature is the same as the other one. Actually, the key signature is the same for all three of them. I don't know how they got away with that. Maybe because they're thinking they went to a minor, the relative minor, and so it's okay to keep the same key signature. It was probably on purpose. But anyway, we got two flats. This is what gets me. It says swing ballad. So what I would assume from swing ballad is your eighth notes are swung. Do ya da da dee do da, dee do da dee do da, blah da ba dee da do ba. So every time you see an eighth note, if it's a swing feel, you're basically thinking in triplets. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, do ba, with that little grace note in there. And so you would play it. Now, when I listen to the play along track online, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear this, if at all, but when I listen to the play along track, oh, I'm not going to be able to find it now. These might be old tracks. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know if the play along tracks have come up yet. Who the heck is that? We just picked up a gig. Oh, I'm going to have to look at that. So, oh, I think these tracks are old. Okay, so I was looking at the Allstate play along tracks. 2022 practice tracks are available June 1st. Okay, so these are probably old tracks. That's what was goofing me up. So I was listening to the tracks and they didn't sound like swung eighth notes. So anyway, okay, so it probably is swung, like it says, and that would make sense. So commonly what people have you do is practice without the grace notes. Do da 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 dee do da. Now right there we have triplet subdivision. You have to have that down 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Here's a metronome if you can't hear it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, do, da, da, da. And then we have 16th notes. You have to have 16th note subdivisions. Da, 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 do. And so when you put those together, well, you're going to have triplets and 16th notes side by side. You want to be very good at going from one to the other. Do, 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 do. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that you can do this instantaneous or as best as you can when you're playing through there. So in the first measure, do ba 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 dee do da. Me singing wrong pitches and things because I'm just looking at this today, you know. So to put that with the grace notes, well, let's do it without the grace notes first. A lot of people would practice it without the grace notes, get the rhythms and get everything down, and then add the grace notes after they get it. You know, and then with the grace notes. Now there's what I'm assuming is a staccato above the D flat. But when you look closely at it, it looks like a tiny little asterisk. It's weird. You guys know what I'm talking about? So in measure 1, above the D flat, there's a little star thing. But if you look at the first etude, every time you see a staccato note, it's a dot. Unless I'm blind. So I don't know if that's supposed to be staccato or not. I don't know what sounds better. I think it sounds okay if short. But anyway, yeah, the subdivision there. Make sure your 16th notes are right in time. Oh, what else do we have? It does the same thing. Triplets to 16ths again. Jeepers. Good luck with that. Watch your C flat. That's going to be second valve. Like this is dense. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot that could trip you up with the grace notes and the accidentals and the rhythmic subdivision. And then in measure 3, there's another one of those dips, bends, if that's the way. I've seen people use bends for a grace note inflection, half step below. And so, but if you look at the piece, they definitely have grace notes for that. You know, if you think about I'm used to seeing that and it meaning that, but I think here we're just doing dips for the most part. Unless you can think of a better way to do that. So anyway. So there, I got to work on my time, keeping that triplet happening. Because once I start doing that bend, did I tie that G flat over? I think I did the first time. Anyway, triplets everywhere. Line 2. You're going to have 8th notes to 16th notes, more grace notes all over the place. If you look at line 2, the last measure, there's your triplet over a half note. The way you do that, and you do it like correctly, is you're thinking triplets, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then this would be like 2 sets of triplets, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, da 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 da. And so to play this, the rest that you see in line 2, the last measure, is the first two 8th notes, 8th note triplets, and then your A is the next 2 8th note triplets. Da 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 dee da 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 is how that rhythm's going to go. And then you throw the grace note over it. So 1, 2, triplet, triplet. And again, you're doing tons of subdividing here, but mostly subdivide. Practice at 65, practice your triplet subdivisions, practice your 16th note subdivisions, just and alternating back and forth, one beat to the next. You just have to have that down. We already looked at the double time swing. Typical swing articulation. There's a couple different things you can do. There's lots of different things you can do. There's the do-da articulation. Do for downbeats, da for upbeats. Do-da, do-da. Do-da, do, where you actually articulate every single note. Do-da, 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 do-da. And you swing it like that. But another way to get a similar effect is to articulate the upbeat and then slur to the downbeat. So if we look at that double time swing section, line 3, measure 3. No, measure 2 in line 3. We'll start on the A and just pretend it's not tied. You see how I'm going ta, ti, ya, ti, ya. Turn this off. So you articulate upbeats and slur to downbeats. This gives you a do-da effect because when you articulate, it sort of hits the note or accents the note just a little bit. And so you have that, you start to get that jazz feel. I played it different both times. But it's still swung. So it's 65. There it goes to a D. What else was I going to say about that? The only time I wouldn't do, one of the reasons you would diverge from that articulation just a little bit is if you were to like emphasize the peaks of your phrase. So if you look at your phrase, as the phrase goes up, especially in this double time swing area, like that top note, you're going to punch it just a little bit more. And so if you ever have one of your notes that are higher than the rest and you're trying to accent it, you're going to want to articulate that anyway. See if I can find an example. If it's an upbeat, it's already going to be emphasized somewhat. You can just give it a little more emphasis. If it's a downbeat and it's a peak, like measure, so look at line 1, 2, 3, 4, measure 2, the D natural, that downbeat I would emphasize because it's the top of the phrase. It's one of the higher notes in the phrase. I'll try adjusting. See what I mean? Boo-boo-da-boo-da. So I'd hit the D a little bit harder. And then the double time keeps going into the next line. Once you get to the all state cut, your little asterisks, it's the same as the beginning. So you're probably, or at least a lot of it's the same as the beginning. So you should have it in your ear well enough to be able to play that up an octave. But same as before, just take it down an octave and get used to it. Let's look at Etude 3. Samba, 200. So 200, let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so that's quick. Now take a look at it, try to figure out the rhythms before I tried to play it personally. 1, 2, da, do, ba, da, 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 do, da, do, ba, da, da. Okay, so you got lots of upbeats in there. Da, do, da. As soon as you play your B flat, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes are all going to be upbeats. Da, do, da, 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 da. I'm starting to go slower. Da, do, da, 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 do, da. Da, do, da, 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 do, da. Da, do, da, 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 do, da. No. There's one more. Da, do, da, da, dee, da, 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 do, da. I still screwed it up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Like feeling 200. Da do da, and then there's accents you got to throw in there. Da do da do dee da da da. It makes it a little bit easier to count when you know that they're all just upbeats, but then you got to be good at upbeats. So you're probably going to just take that down tempo and work on that slow to fast. So there's that. There's syncopation all over the place. There's accents. Dee ba doo bop boo dee dot dot doo dee dot dot. 1, 2 da doo dee da 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 doo da da dee da 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 dee da 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 ba dee bop boo dee da da doo dee da 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 da. Okay, so there you have. This is straight, by the way, so it's a samba. In line 1 and 2 is just rhythmic figures all day. You have to subdivide, tap your foot, and learn all that. In line 3, we're looking at scalular passages. Looks like there's some sort of diminished, looks like a diminished scale going up. And then E flat 7 altered, it says. And then what does it do? Because I can figure out the diminished. So this line 3, measure 1, you have kind of a diminished thing going on. Chord and then part of the scale. And then you have E flat altered in measure 2. So if we've worked on altered, you're welcome. If we haven't, in measure 3, let's see what we're looking at. It's chromatic. And then C sharp, A flat. I don't know how else to think about that except chromatic, 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 chromatic. So that's going to be. Again, we have 2 flats, just like all the other music we're dealing with. 2 flats. C, C sharp, D, so that's chromatic. So there's chromaticism in sets of 3, the way I'm looking at it right now, if that makes it helpful. That's still an A natural. There's nothing else. Okay, good. It's a B flat. So the way I practice through here is I try to look at the line that I'm playing and identify or associate it with something that I know. And the more scales, arpeggios, chords, modes, the different kinds of scales that you know, the more of this that you know, the more you can associate. My brother was, who was it? That doesn't matter. The more of this you know, the more you can associate and the better you can read this stuff, because then you just look at it, you identify, okay, it's this kind of scale, and then you've been practicing that kind of scale, and you can play it. I still miss that B flat. Anyway, the only way I can read through there is because I'm thinking, I'm not looking at every individual, note, every subatomic particle of the phrase. I'm looking at the scale that it is. So this is how I try to think about it. Diminished, E flat altered, and then chromatic. And that's why that chromatic part's goofing me up a little bit. And then when you get to line 4, it's just G minor. G minor, or you can think B flat major 7. But there's an idea in B flat major that I use. That's just something that I've had my students play in all keys. And that's something that I work on. So that whole thing at 200, I wouldn't tap my foot tap, 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 tap. That's a little insane. I would think in 100. Gosh, that almost got me. I might have gotten off time a little bit too, but that's a tough lick. Probably going to slow it down, practice the heck out of it. And well, while we're talking about that, if you're trying to run these licks, your best bet, especially for these running eighth note lines, is probably just hammering them out on your fingers until your fingers know exactly what they're doing. And just go crazy on your fingers. And then when your fingers are really comfortable, and set your metronome somewhere slow and play it somewhere where you're not going to make any mistakes. Like that. Just kidding. What's next? So line 4, we got some more of these turns. I can't believe I swung that. June 3rd, not June 6th. Ooh, I'm going to have to look at that. So that's straight. I got to remind myself that. Oop. So watch your articulations, watch your staccatos, your accents. After that, got a bunch of triplets. Dee da da da, dee da da da, dee da da da. That's interesting. Okay, so in line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, measure 3, we have a whole bunch of triplets in there. Again, I would think in 100. This will be easy for the triplets anyway. Dee da da do, dee da do do, dee do do da. Dee da da do, dee da da do, dee da do da. You guys see what they're doing? What Mr. Lewis has done? You see what Mr. Lewis has done to the music? What do you call that when you're... So he's got triplets, but he's... Here, listen to this. You see that? So it's this. So he has this da boo da boo da da dee da da. They're triplets, but he has this 4-note line happening. That's cool. You just got to make sure you're coming in at the right spot. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Da da dee do da da do do dee da do da do do dot. Da do dee do da da dee do da da do dee do do dot. 3, 4. Oh. Oh, I came in way late at the end there. But that's what those triplets do, if that makes sense. 4. Da, do, da, da. I might have messed up my after the triplets. Let me see. Still might have come in late. But anyway, that's kind of that feel of those triplets. What else is going on? Okay, then the high note section. One. Dot do dot dee dot dot da do da ba da ba dee ba do dot da da ba dee ba do dot dot dot. What is that? Dot dot da dot 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 da dot 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 da dot dot. Is that what that is? Dot dot da yo dot 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 da yo dot da yo dot. Yeah. For falls, the thing I think is important about falls is when you start to descend, you crescendo, or you blow a lot more air as you're going down. So think about half valve. Try to blow extra air as you're going down. And they say half valve. Like if this is actually half valve, I do less than half valve for my falls. You want to find that spot where it's more glitchy. And so for me, it's a little bit more, it's less than halfway for me. I didn't lick level for a second there. But use that half valve, crescendo down through it. What else would I say about this one? That's all I'm really seeing. Yeah, down, and then do the fall. Next, B flat blues, swing, 152. We're going quick, aren't we? What time is it? Jeepers. All right, so here's 152 B flat blues. You can find B flat blues recordings all over the internet that you can play along with. Concert B flat. So when you're practicing this, a lot of you guys are going to have experience with B flat blues already. If not, one of the more common things that people have you, well, teachers often have their students just play the blues scale over the whole thing, which it's not a bad way to start if you're trying to encourage somebody to start improvising and soloing and coming up with ideas on their own. It's a pretty safe bet because most things sound good when you're using the blues scale. What I would have you do, practice playing through the changes. Practice playing patterns over the changes to get really familiar with the changes. A couple of things that I do if I'm trying to learn a piece is just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you look at the page, there's the intro. I don't imagine you're going to play anything during the intro, but I got to double check that. The solo section's probably where your solo is going to start because that says solo section. In 1, 2, 3, in the fourth line, you're not going to have enough time to do all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unless you double time it. So typically, if I'm going through, I'm just going to do the chord. Let's look at the changes a little bit closer. So there's F sharp diminished 7. So this is going to be a chord made up of minor thirds. If you want to write this down, it's going to be F sharp, A, C, E flat. Those are your chord tones. In the measure 12, which is more like measure 8, but whatever. But you can see it's listed as measure 12. Is E half diminished 7th. That's going to be E, G, B flat, D natural. I don't think I messed that up. Then your A7 has an extension, has a flat 9 on top. So A, C sharp, E, G with a B flat on top of that. What else? What else wouldn't you know? Yeah, I would practice through those chords. Just pick. What else would I do? I think it's good to practice. It's good to practice scale patterns over these chords, to learn the chords, to make them more second nature to you, and to pick ideas that force you to think about parts of the chord that you're not very familiar with. For example, when I look at C7, I instantly think like E, just because of different ideas that I've practiced. So you might try starting on the third and do an idea like start on the third note of the chord, C, D, E. And so every time you go to the next chord, you're training yourself to think of the third of that chord. So the first one, the C7 would be E, C, E, G. And then the F7 would start on an A. And then there I would do the like just 3, 3, 1, 3. You know, that way, again, you're training yourself to think about like you're trying to make the path in your brain that thinks about the chord tones or the other notes in the scale or chord quicker. The other one I would do is start on 5. So something like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You know, so you're instantly thinking of the 5th note. And this gives you so much flexibility. You're able to mentally map out the scale and or chords that you're having to play over. And so once you can do that, you can see like all the good notes and you can switch from chord to chord. It gives you a lot of flexibility on what you can do. I probably wouldn't play a solo quite so chordally, but I want you to have kind of an idea of how you can use those chord tones. As long as you can think about those chord tones, you have a little bit more freedom to be expressive. And it teaches you to hear what those different parts of the chord sound like so that you know what you want to play and you know where to go to get that sound as you're playing. If any of that makes sense, great. And then after that, the All-State Improv, Have You Met Miss Jones? They wrote I Have Met Miss Jones, but it's based on the changes. Have You Met Miss Jones? I assume. And this one, because there's so many changes, you're probably doing... A lot of these measures have 2 chords per measure, so you're probably going to be doing a lot of 1, 3, 5, 7. That's what I would do. So if you're doing it, how fast is this? 186. Oh gosh. And I would have to think about that. But go through your chords 1, 3, 5, 7. Do it backwards 7, 5, 3, 1. 5, 3, 1, 3. 3, 1, 3, 5. That way you can, the quicker you can go from one to the next, it just maps out the possibilities when you're playing through here. And then when you come to chords that are, the whole measure long, go back and play one measure ideas. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3. Get the idea. And then after that, for soloing, I mean, you can find so many recordings of people improvising to these tunes. B flat blues, Have You Met Miss Jones? Go on YouTube and find somebody playing a solo that you like or think is interesting, and try playing some things that you hear them do. Ideally, you figure out their entire solo, copy it, write it down, and then you don't want to stop there because you can just steal ideas and that's fine. It's good, it's encouraged. But if you have somebody playing something interesting that you like, you can always go a step further. What's an example? So I liked this lick that somebody played. So that's a 2-5-1 in C or concert B flat, and he uses the altered scale. This was Justin Kaiser playing a lick over a tune. I was like, well, I think that's really, really cool. I like that he's using chord tones and then he just does the altered scale going down. And so I was like, well, the altered scale is cool. I think I actually changed to like a diminished idea. So you can start to add inflections to it. You can take the basic idea, like he's doing an altered scale in a certain way. You can do different things before that. You can change the time, but the crux of it is he's going to the third of the 5 chord, and then he kind of goes through and does a descending altered. So you can do almost anything you want, kind of within a set. You can set a framework for yourself. So you can do instead of doing, you can do more. You can do anything before that as long as you land on a B, let's say, and still use that altered scale. So those are, and there's things like that I like to do. All right, in the comments, if you have a copy, a whole solo, could you get disqualified? Oh, I don't know. Someone did that last year and they didn't. Then you're probably not going to get disqualified. How would they know? Well, I shouldn't say that. What I mean is, how would they know that you memorized it versus reading it? Well, it's kind of obvious because you can see if somebody's reading something versus memorizing it. And then you can always tell the difference between somebody playing something written or pre-written and somebody playing something off the cuff. So before I wrap this up, everything that I've said right now is spontaneous and improvised. And you can tell the difference between that and if I were to read, let me read out of a book. The following 10 studies are designed solely to develop the action of the lips and the back of the tongue until the utmost flexibility. Like, it's obvious that I'm reading a book. And like now you can hear in my voice, there's little pauses because I'm thinking of the next thing I'm going to say. And improvisation is a lot like that. If I'm playing something written, let me just. Like, to me, that's obvious that it's something written and not something I'm just coming up with on the spot. Because if I'm thinking of ideas on the spot, it's going to be a combination of ideas and vocabulary that I know, but I'm going to try to put it together in some sort of thoughtful way. Like, how long am I going to do that? I don't know. It depends. But that's where it's a little bit more obvious that it's off the cuff. And so if somebody were to play something written and obvious, and somebody else played and sounded good, and somebody else sounded equally good, but it was off the cuff, I think you would have to give points to somebody who was playing more off the cuff and still made interesting ideas. Or at least I would, because like that's the whole point. Almost broke something. So anyway, yeah, I imagine people write out solos. And I think it's good to write out solos, by the way. Like, you wouldn't want to be so original that you didn't take into consideration any sort of jazz vocabulary. Like, that's a little too original. You don't want to Do you have good ideas? Do you have good ideas for improv? Yeah, CJ Chubster. Rewind the video a little bit. Check them out. What was I saying? Well, I can't remember. But anyway, I think it's obvious if you're making up your own solo or not. The younger you are, you're probably going to do things in stages. You're probably going to start with the first stage, which is just engrossing yourself with as much jazz vocabulary as you can listen to and then copy. Just think about what you do when you're a baby. It's like you have people talking all around you, and I've had a lot of babies, so I mean, I see this on the day-to-day. You say something or you make a sound, and all of a sudden you hear the little baby make the same sound you just made, for good or for bad, sometimes. But that's what they do. They hear it, and then they try it out. And they go through this process for a long time. And they get better at copying because you give them feedback like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And maybe you repeat the word, and they keep practicing that sound. And then they start, over years, to incorporate those sounds into getting what they want or communicating whatever idea. The first idea I ever played was kind of a Charlie Parker idea. So if I'm in C, it's the 1, the 4, the 2, the raised 2, and then the 3. I took that and I would do that in all keys. Where else next? So that was an idea that I learned. I just practiced it over and over until I could just do that anytime I wanted. It became automatic. And then I would start applying it, and I would just put it on chords. So if I'm looking at the blues, but after you do it so often, you start to, well, you do this with more than just one idea. And so you want to get comfortable with as many ideas as you can, I would say. And that's learning the jazz vocabulary and then learning how to apply it over your chords. Then start to take those ideas and use them as a springboard to come up with other things. Like I just played. I kind of bounced off from that one idea and kept going. Or use that at the end of an idea like Charlie Parker does a lot. Right? So you just get so used to an idea that you can apply it in lots of situations. And then after you're really comfortable, do it with another idea. So improvisation, I mean, you can talk for days about these kind of concepts and how to improve, how to get better. But try these out. If you guys want more questions, most of you guys out there are students of mine, so I'll see you during your lesson. You can let me know if you have questions there. Hopefully this is helpful. And if you're not a student of mine, I don't know what you're waiting for. Yeah, that's about it. Any other questions from anybody out there? I might answer it. How could I start getting lessons? Well, that depends where you are. So if you're in the San Antonio area, easy. I live in San Antonio. Just finished learning the first page. Thank you for this video. You're very welcome. I'm glad you learned the first page. That's awesome. Do you give lessons via Skype, FaceTime, Zoom? Yes, I do. So that's what I was going to say. To CJ Chubster, how could I start getting lessons? What I could do, let me give you my email. And then if you guys are out of town, if you can't show up, I'm in Houston. That's why I'm asking. Well, if you're in Houston, I don't know if you can get with. So the author, Eddie Lewis, like he wrote all these etudes. If you look up there, Eddie Lewis, Etude 1, 2, and 3, like he wrote all these things. So if you're in Houston, I mean, man, check out, see if you can get some lessons with Eddie Lewis. And he has a YouTube channel out there too. But if you've got some in-person lessons with him, I think that'd be great. I got some extra time over the summer. I can take on some students, and that's fine with me. Let me give you all my email, and then just shoot me an email if you want to set up a Zoom lesson. That's just fine. We can find a time to make that work. LUTNCH.com. All right, there you go. So if anybody wants to do lessons, just shoot me an email, and yeah, we'll find a time to make it work. Other than that, that's about all I got. I'm hoping to, well, we'll see. I was thinking about putting out some online classes, just because not everybody can make lessons work. If you can, great. But I was thinking of doing some online classes for some of y'all out there who can't meet up. Anyway, hope this is helpful. My email's out there if you guys want to ask me any other questions or set up lessons. Yeah, that should be my right email. So I'll leave that up for just a second, and then that's it. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.